All right, in this segment, if you were so preoccupied with whether or not you could, you didn't stop to think if you should, we have a jumping robot. This is the Unitree Superman, and it is insane. Just to be clear, these are not fake examples. This is a real robot. This really happened. This is not AI. It is, I mean, it's like AI in the sense that it's an actual robot running AI, but it actually is something that is out in the real world performing like this. So coming soon, I guess, to all of our neighborhoods. I mean, like, no cap, you are going to be driving down a neighborhood street and there will probably be a robot like this running faster than your car, like 25 miles an hour in the future. Think of how weird that'll be. And it won't just be one, it might just be hundreds, like of delivery robots. The humanoid just walks in, grabs the food and delivers it to the house, just runs down the street at full speed. Like, why not? Honestly, maybe you're even allowed to drive right at these things as they're delivering, because they just jump right over your car. Like, they don't give a crap. So yeah, we'll look into the new Superman from Unitree. This thing is a crazy robot. All right, tell me in the comments, what do you think about this? I've been pondering it on the drive back from playing basketball tonight, and I don't know if this should make me feel safe. He said 10 hours ago that OpenAI has paused some frontier reinforcement learning training. He says, we care very deeply about AI safety. We believe the entire field will have to coordinate on shared safety standards, but will act unilaterally in the meantime. I mean, do you think he saw something that worried him? Or do you think this is actually just responsibility? And how do you think someone like Elon Musk reads that tweet? Like, oh, okay, well, then I'm just gonna cruise ahead and like, thank God you gave up your first place position because I'm not slowing down? Or do you think the leadership at Google and XAI are gonna say, okay, well, we'll all stop? First, if you wouldn't mind smashing the hype button on the YouTube app if you're on your iPhone or Android, definitely helps channels that are small like this stand out in the sea of AI garbage out there. All right, Unitree Robotics has unveiled the latest humanoid robot, affectionately dubbed Superman. This crazy headless, by the way, machine is generating massive buzz for claiming physical feats that would break human world records, running and jumping well beyond human levels. Sprints faster than Usain Bolt. It jumped higher than the human standing jump record. And according to them, it was actually done in just 3 months. That is a remarkably rapid prototyping cycle. Nothing I thought that capable would happen that quick. So get ready, just think about what that means. All right, so this robot though, it's not yet announced as a commercially available product, so don't think that you're gonna be buying it. But you know, could some sort of delivery system order a big fleet of these soon? Or is this just the future of all capable robotics, even the ones built in the US soon? Absolutely. And it makes me wonder if they should get licensed. Like, should they be street legal if they're gonna run maybe in the same lanes as cars? If they can go that speed, I guess they might as well, as long as they don't bump into us. I mean, I guess it's not that much different than just like a self-driving like Waymo or something. But it is crazy just to see that spring, you know, right there from the knees and the calves, and then with the ankle at the end, and then that thing is just, whoa. There is in slow motion, just heel strikes, toe strikes, zip, zip, zip. All right, next up, let's look at Sam Altman. I don't know if it was the robot that freaked him out. I don't know if it's something he saw, if this is just reasonable response to what's going on in the world. I am really torn on how to interpret this. Mostly scared, I think. And part of me acknowledges that maybe this is just real responsibility. Somebody who's thinking, wow, like I could win by putting this out, but if I keep doing this, the world's going to get into more and more trouble and someone needs to like deal with this, and then maybe the buck stops with me. I mean, I don't know him personally. I can't really get a read. I've read what's her name, Karen Howe's book on him, which was a pretty big deep dive, so I have some maybe insights from that, but nothing that I can make a judgment from, and it just feels fake. I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't register to me as like realistic enough. But there's definitely some really scary stuff happening behind the scenes with cybersecurity. We saw how many breaches they had recently. I'm sure the government was kind of like, you also probably need to do this if so. All right, so from the official report, OpenAI put its largest planned frontier model on hold. They say that an upcoming model called Astra may meet the critical cyber threshold in their own preparedness framework. So we kind of need to wait to hear about this technical report that should be coming in a few weeks. It's going to really break down the whole OpenAI Hugging Face incident in detail so we can find out, I guess, just how clever and dangerous it might be. But it was enough that they took a 2-week pause on reinforcement learning for the models headed to deployment. Also, they will be running their untrusted code in much tighter sandboxes, completely cut off from the open internet. Not sure why they didn't do that in the first place, but okay. Can you imagine having a frontier model that is untrusted code and have a sandbox that even has the internet on it? You're just probably thinking like, nah, this thing will never be smart enough to get past our firewall. Think again. Okay, so let's talk about another way that we know this thing is highly capable and a little worrisome. So classifiers are a way to read the model's internal activity at every sampled token. And the flags started to climb. They became more and more obvious. They became more and more automated. And investigators thought that it was getting to a critical mass. When this happens, I guess there's this real kind of alert that happens. Safety and security teams come to look at the model and the code that it's writing. And if those teams cannot call it a false alarm within 30 minutes, they pause the work altogether. This was one of the most interesting things I'd ever read. Like, I did not realize that they have this internal model, right? It is not safe. Like, it could be capable of stuff the world's never seen before. It's in this sandbox. Researchers are probably giving it fake ideas and seeing if it's going to break out or if it's going to blackmail people. And at the same time, you've got this $50 billion machine, just reinforcement learning, training new models, sucking up data, generating new data. And if the security team comes over and says, hey, this is not a false alarm, that goes on pause. So maybe that's why there's this 2-week pause. Maybe it wasn't so much like Sam Altman just saying, oh, I think we need a pause. So look, every word on this blog is self-reported. There is no outside auditors named in this post. There's no numbers that specifically explain what was going on. So let's keep an eye out. In the next couple of weeks, hopefully we have much more helpful data from whatever's going on today at OpenAI. Actually, should we check out the comments really quick? I'm sort of curious if people... Yeah, Eliezer Yudkowsky, good. Sam Altman also notes that we're not going to stop shipping great new models. This impacts further out releases. See, and this is where the debate's going to get crazy. Yes, pause now until China catches up. China is close and I like it. What do you like China taking the lead so much, Nick? You morons, you struggle so hard to come up with good models, and just when they're about to shine, you shoot yourself in the foot. Bro, you will become obsolete. Maybe, but Danny Q's got a good point, though. Why do so many people mention your lack of care for safety, and why did they leave OpenAI? From Ilya to Maria to many safety experts and junior staff. Danny Q, I totally feel that way. It's very hard to take at face value. That's it. Part of it is just that I just don't feel like that's ever been a huge priority for him. Coming from Dario, I would believe it. Okay, so I'm going to use this next article as a kind of a jumping off point. So Cory Doctorow writes this book, and it uses a lot of terminology around centaurs. So a centaur is a human helped by a machine. A person sets the direction, then the machine supplies the horsepower. His key example is a delivery driver whose route, pace, and bathroom breaks are all dictated by an algorithm. Or you've seen Brian Johnson, deciding all of his food choices based on what will give him an optimal lifespan. So I wanted to get some of your thoughts about this idea of a centaur, human helped by machine, because I just don't... When I start envisioning the future, that doesn't really check out for me. Because even that description itself doesn't seem like it's in that person's best interest. I mean, yes, they're probably maximizing their productivity by being an Uber delivery driver with a route, bathroom breaks, and all that stuff perfectly aligned. But what those agents that are, in this hypothetical situation putting him through were probably queued up by the company to improve revenues. So maybe in some cases, some people will have some self-hosted AI and it will be dictating rules for them based on their own thoughts, their own desires. But it seems to me that there will be countless, maybe trillions or hundreds of billions of just agents out there. And if you've played with orchestrator agents where they're spinning up other agents, if they're making money, they're probably just going to keep spinning up more and more agents to work on more and more things, to do more and more R&D. And I got a feeling nobody will really have their head around any of it. A Google search right now works, but try to ask any one person who works at Google exactly what link will show up under what exact search. It's just There's so much going on. That algorithm has been pushed and pulled and tweaked for so many years that even something like that, which might not even be completely AI, like an AI model, it's just too much. And if there are hundreds, like Elon Musk has incredible numbers for how much Optimus is supposed to sell. If there are more robots than humans, and if there are, like, say, 8 billion drones and also 8 billion humanoids and probably something similar with vehicles and submarines and all sorts of things that move around your house that are just like toasters and stuff like that, it's just each one kind of on its own cue. It's not going to even feel like one entity. It'll feel like we entered this, like we joined another planet with an entire planet's ecosystem of digital products out there. Some kind of in favor of humans, some kind of not. Maybe they fight with each other. Some protect you, some don't. And I just think that that is what is coming so fast. And when you think about the way an LLM works, like it can go search and like think about its own thinking. It can kind of ponder and it can put together all this research. If we actually have physical embodied robots soon and you ask for something, they can physically maybe go set up an experiment. And I don't imagine just like a lab where somebody's working on some material science. Like imagine a question where you say, how much, like what's the biomass of everyone on Earth? Like right now an LLM might just go look it up, but there's reason to think that in the future, if that was an important enough question, there would be all these different ways that it would continually refine its guess. Like it might look at a video of people like walking in crowds and make estimates of how much like mass there is. There might be data that comes from like food and water resources or just human waste, like, or how much clothes is sold and the size of it. Like there will just be countless agents that can go out there and refine that question. They can always find another data source that they could check. There could be a robot that walks up to you and says, hey, I'm on this task. I'm trying to figure out like how much biomass there is in the world. Like, could I randomly weigh you? And I'll give you like 10 shekels or God knows what money looks like at that point. And somebody who's kind of poor is like, yeah, fine. Just put me on a scale and have that data at this moment. And it's like finding it out in real time. And the more money you put into it, the more accurate it is. And so many of these agents are negotiating with so many other agents to like maybe get access, or maybe you have a robot at your front door that's talking to the other robots, deciding if it should like let it in because maybe it wants to weigh you, or like who knows, man. It's just, it will feel so alien and so foreign. I think I don't feel like the future is like the past, just with more tech. I don't think it's like these sci-fi movies. Obviously, I don't see the future and I don't know, and maybe there is lots of ways that it just sort of stays contained that way, but I feel like it's a lack of imagination. Like somebody 100 years ago being like, I pretty much know what the next 100 years is going to be like, sort of like this, but like faster and better, you know? But it just isn't. Like our world is just qualitatively way different. Anyway, let's enjoy trading coins while we have like collectible coins while we still have a pretty normal world. So I'm always fascinated when there's an interesting data set and computer vision and machine learning are applied to it. And this was a great example of that. Collectible coins are now getting their AI day, and I could see this being really cool for a lot of hobbyists. So the problem here is that traditionally there's these experts that are grading coins, right? Like you've probably seen Pokemon cards or comic book cards graded. And yeah, there's experts that have to basically pass tests that seem to know like basically how to measure things, and they're supposed to use their judgment to grade something. And overall, this puts most things on mostly level playing fields, but there's plenty of exceptions where comic books should have been, you know, graded a little bit higher according to their owners and stuff like that. It's just inherently subjective. And previous attempts using standard computer vision failed because they couldn't distinguish the incredibly subtle visual differences between similar coin conditions, like some coins that have never been circulated versus just minimally circulated versus very circulated but polished and cleaned up. So they turned to AI. And the final system ended up using a combination of dual deep learning models, which evaluate both sides of the coin simultaneously, just like a human expert. And the results are that the new method significantly outperformed previous computer vision attempts. So I just think it's interesting. Grading is one of the last trades where a person's eye is essentially the product. The label of the coin, like the casing it goes into, the resale price, it all rides on the trust of the eye. And now it seems like software is going to be able to grade and understand way more coins much faster. You can get multiple scores over and over again to help refine it. And maybe some of the fight will stop being about accuracy and it becomes more about which coins really are the most rare. So I'm kind of into it, to be honest. Next up, let's move over to the world of upscaling, and we're not just talking about the original Jurassic Park VHS. We are talking about high resolution fluorescence lifetime imaging. I know I hadn't really heard much about this until now, but it's a very cool way to learn about the human body. So it's a special imaging technique that lets researchers see biochemical details in tissue. So the interesting thing about this is you basically hit the body with a light pulse, and then you can tell how long a molecule glows after. But we're talking about exceptionally subtle glowing that like persists and exceptionally small timelines. No dyes are needed, and it reveals things about metabolism and health issues that ordinary microscopes just seem to miss. So it's really important imaging. But the big problem is speed. So getting a reliable reading at every pixel means scanning slowly, which is a deal breaker for something like guiding surgery in real time. So they need something that can go a lot faster. So they turned to upscaling, and they trained again a generative model to fill in the lost details when you scan much faster. So it can take a scan with pixels 5 times bigger than the resolution they want and basically upscale it. They tested it on head and neck tumor tissue, holding back scans from 3 patients the model had never seen before, and the reconstructions closely matched the real high-resolution originals. So a very cool way to use artificial intelligence to improve science. I'm all for it. Next up, let's talk about why women are missing out on the AI jobs boom. So here's the facts. Women took 26% of new AI hire jobs last year. Men took 74%. So that's new LinkedIn data. It's coming from the Axios write-up. Now, in non-AI jobs, the country was about 50-50. So this lack of female workers is specific to AI. And you can imagine it's a pretty highly lucrative industry. There's just untold billions of dollars going into AI right now. 80% male, mean listed pay is $236,000. Dude, that's such an interesting mean for a job. $236,000. Members of technical staff are 82% male. Directors of AI engineers are 76% male, with one exception being the data annotator. So that one splits 50-50. Men and women equally annotate data, but that's, it's kind of the grunt job of the whole industry. I mean, I'm not saying if you're an annotator, it's nothing, but like you're just, you're definitely essentially filling out CAPTCHAs for these machines to get smarter. I'd like to see women holding those higher level jobs at around the same rate. But I mean, who won it? I don't really know what the reasoning is. It's interesting. Some of LinkedIn's older research added a sorting effect also, where women with AI skills were clustering in the use and application of AI in analytics, research, and teaching, while men were clustering in building the technology itself, deep learning, and neural networks. And that maps almost exactly onto which titles pay the $223,000 and which ones pay the $51,000 a year. So big difference. Also, keep in mind the gap is a lagging indicator of who was a machine learning PhD in 2019. So maybe there's a lot more women getting into it, and we're just gonna wait until they get into the industry to see them. Next up, let's look at how scientists are using AI to predict how breast cancer could progress. There's a new AI tool that can look inside breast cancer tumors, and it found something that other people just kept missing. It targeted something called the centrosome. I didn't know much about this, but it's like the tiny part of the cell that pulls DNA apart whenever the cell splits. Scientists have called a broken centrosome a hallmark of cancer for over 100 years, but nobody could study them well in real patient tissue. They're too small and they don't hold still. Think of trying to count fireflies in a dark yard from a photo. Not easy. You know they're there, but you just can't pin them down. So this new research team built a tool called SenSigNet, and it read tissue from 127 breast cancer patients at one hospital. Measured more than 330,000 centrosomes, one cell at a time, and it split the deficit into 2 separate problems. One was cells picking up too many centrosomes, and the other is centrosomes growing too big. So those were actually treated as the same process before, but this tool shows that they act on their own, and you need to measure them on their own, and they sit in different parts of the tumor. and tumors with a lot of the enlarged kind were more aggressive, and patients with lower levels had a better shot at survival. So for 100 years, this was all just in one bucket, but an AI split it into two, and the two halves behave different, and it's much more predictive now. So pretty neat stuff. All right, let's talk about Google buying all of Spirit Airlines data just to feed their AI models. Like, this is so weird. This is such a only like 2026 world. So the airline goes bankrupt. They're selling their remaining assets through a bankruptcy process. And then a couple companies, AI companies, start bidding for the data. And Google ends up winning $10 million they're willing to give. That includes emails and internal communications, spreadsheets, transactions with the public, including booking and frequent flyer information, as well as HR resource information on its employees. What is going on here? Like, anyone who booked a flight with them, now just the company goes bankrupt and Google just buys it and puts it in their AI model? That's okay. All the little HR write-ups, all the internal people who were like, blah, 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 shouldn't have said this, and I don't like that person. Like, that's all going in there? Like, are these big companies just going to become so big? They're like, oh, we just bought some restaurants, and now we're just going to, like, take all their HR data, and, like, we bought the Cheesecake Factory, and now we'll just take all the information about what kind of food they order and, like, how this stuff works, and, like, go to McDonald's, and, like, everything. I mean, I guess they weren't thinking. They were just bankrupt, so they're just selling it. The data's a value, so the data's a value, and I guess you gotta owe that to the shareholders. I get that, but it's just a weird world we're living in. All right, and finally, let's talk about how we're passing on some of our shared human tendencies to the future of AI, but a couple of them I wish we weren't. AI shares the human tendency to infer character from facial features. Basically, you want to judge a book by the cover, then humans have a natural tendency for it, and AI does now too. So people have a bias, right? Like, they tend to judge people from their face, like he or she looks pretty trustworthy. That person looks competent, even though faces don't actually predict behavior. Well, you might think that an AI that is trained on human data could be better than us and just look at what the actual results are and come to the right conclusions, but actually, it seems like our bias is seeping in. Researchers showed computer-generated faces to several AI models, GPT-4o, 5, Gemini 3, and Sonnet 4.5, and asked them to pick which face was more competent, more trustworthy, smarter, lazier, aggressive, and so on. They also asked which faces looked more likely to be a serial killer or a fraudster, and which person they'd hire as a university president, invest in, or trust with their money. There's a few interesting things about this. First off, the models actually answer these questions. Like, you'd think they might have refused to judge, but somehow that does not seem to be the way they've trained the models. Like, the guardrails do not care about that. And they did tend to usually pick the same face that a human would pick. GPT-4o matched human bias about 75% of the time. And you might think, oh, well, that was 4o. I'm sure GPT-5 was better, but you'd be completely wrong. GPT-5 was actually more biased. It literally recommends the, quote, competent looking face 97% of the time. Smash that hype button, touch grass. Let's enjoy this world while we still have it. I feel like a lot of change is coming, and I'm pretty partial to where we're at now, but I also love the idea of some of the things that are on the horizon. So let's try to keep a very positive focus, and hopefully some of that scientific research will become so valuable that the world will learn that what's on the other side of AGI is so incredibly valuable for so many future generations that we should take it extremely, I want to say extremely slow, but what I mean is just take it extremely seriously with tons of responsibility. I push the frontier in ways that don't seem like they're going to backfire or get out of control. Like, unless you are a human in a country that feels like you're competing with another country, there is no reason to an outside observer that there should be AI being put into military weapons the way it is. It is just not good for our long-time survival. No matter which country you're in, whichever country you think is the good guy, that country winning by using state-of-the-art AI weapons is so much trouble for the whole world. Whoa, kind of like went off there on the end, but that's how it goes. When you're curious, you just sort of ramble. Anyways, smash that hype button. See you in the next video.